I already covered some of the teams that have had a drastic collapse due to the injuries they've dealt with. But for some teams, adversity is something that they could just push through and still find that success. When your back's against the wall, it reveals a lot about the players and the team. It also gives a solid showcase to the front office and the job they did to make sure the roster has some depth. Today I'm going to give my list of the 5 teams that have fought through the injury bug despite losing some key guys or just a lot of guys in general. I will not be making my list based on the number of injuries, but rather based it on the team's records with injuries and the expectations taken into account. For example, the Marlins' expectation was to make the playoffs, but with injuries and poor play, they have had the worst record in baseball, so they would not make this list. To start off this list at number 5, I have the Atlanta Braves. Their expectation was to win games, and that is exactly what they've been doing, as they're sitting at 26-13. They had some injuries to very key players. Those guys include Spencer Strider, they lost for the year, and just having your ace injured is never a good thing. And the other key player they lost was Sean Murphy. He took a few at-bats this year, and he's gotten hurt, and he hasn't played since, but he should be back later this season. They also have had some bullpen arms get hurt, such as Angel Perdomo, Pierce Johnson, and Tyler Matzik. The team is still winning plenty of games, such as the expectation is. They will only get much better once they get to full health and will dominate even more. Unfortunately, as I said, Spencer Strider is out, but other pitchers have stepped up. Sean Murphy is an awesome catcher, and having him back will make a huge difference. The roster is already pretty stacked, so I felt the 5 spot is very appropriate. Next up is the New York Yankees, the first American League team. The Yankees had some pretty tough injuries before and during the season. Jonathan Loaisiga is the most severe, and he's out for the year with Tommy John. Garrett Cole was the biggest player to get hurt, but he's already thrown again and can be back in June. Besides that, they have DJ LeMahieu, Tommy Kahnle, Lou Trevino, Scott Effross, JT Brubaker, Jason Dominguez, and Oswald Peraza out. The bright side is they will start to see some of these guys come back from later in May to early in July, which is huge for the team. Even with all the injuries, the team is in second place in the AL East with a record of 28-15. Having Juan Soto on the team this year has helped them out a bunch, but the expectation was they would compete for the division, and despite the injuries, they are still there. I have them at 4 because they still have a great staff besides Cole. Every other star on the team has thankfully been healthy so far, so that also factors into the decision. My next pick at number 3 is weighted a bit heavier based on who got injured and the record they have despite it. I have the Minnesota Twins at the 3 spot. They started to fall apart early on after losing Royce Lewis, but then they got insanely hot and started winning games. When everything started to look better, they lost their other superstar, Byron Buxton. Both should be returning by the earliest of the end of May. They also had Yohan Duran injured for a good chunk of the season, and now their second best pen arm in Brock Stewart is currently hurt. They have had some other guys such as Josh Winder and Justin Topa hurt, but most of the guys should be back sooner than later. The team is still somehow sitting at 24-17, and they're in the race for first place in a surprisingly competitive AL Central. Minnesota lost some key guys, including Sonny Gray, who was their ace this offseason, so a lot of people had them regress, but they're looking very competitive, despite losing Lewis and Buxton for some time. At the second spot on the list, I have the Los Angeles Dodgers. Their injury list on pitchers is incredibly long. They have Tony Gonsolin, Emmett Sheehan, Brusdar Graterol, Kyle Hurt, no pun intended, Ryan Brazier, Connor Brogdon, Joe Kelly, Clayton Kershaw, Dustin May, Bobby Miller, Evan Phillips, and half of Ohtani. Everyone should return to pitch this year except for Gonsolin and Ohtani. They really haven't had any significant position player injuries, thankfully, but they do currently have a 7.5 game lead in the NL West with a record of 29-15. They were supposed to dominate, but I have to admit it is very impressive how they've performed despite all the missing pitching pieces. The only thing that keeps them out of the 1 spot for me is the fact that they spent over $1 billion this offseason on players, and because of that, the highest I could put them at is 2. Number 1 may or may not surprise you, but this team has especially impressed me. At 1, I have the Boston Red Sox. The reason I have them here is they did not have many analysts rank them as a team that could make some noise. Despite a relatively quiet offseason with a few contracts and some big names traded away, they have a record of 22-20 and they're only 5.5 games out of first place. Before opening day, they lost Lucas Giolito for the season to Tommy John, and the other signing, Liam Hendriks, is currently out until at least August recovering from Tommy John. They lost 2 of their best hitters to the injured list so far in Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida, and both of them are expected to be out until later in June. They also lost Trevor Story for the whole year with the shoulder injury. They had some pitchers with stints on the injured list such as Isaiah Campbell and Garrett Whitlock, but both should be coming back sooner than later. The fact that they have a record above 500 and are still in the mix for the division is extremely impressive, and it's not only a testament to the team, but it's also to the management. I had no choice but to put them at number 1. Keep in mind, these teams could fall apart or they can improve, but I had this list based on the team's records, injuries, and everything on today, May 15th. So keep that in mind. Thankfully, most of these teams' injured players are coming back, with a few exceptions of guys who are going to miss this season. So that's always good to hear. You'd rather have guys come back than be injured long term. Let me know what you think about my list in the comments below. Did I nail it? Did I miss anyone? Should someone have been in another spot? Let me know. I love your feedback and I look forward to hearing from you. Anyways, thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you guys later.